British Drone Industries are a brand that makes some nice accessories for your FPV gear. One of their first products was the DJI adapter. This allowed you to plug an analog module bay into the front of your DJI FPV goggles version 1 and version 2. After that, they've released some really nice bags for goggles, and now they have released a new set of antennas specifically designed for the DJI goggles too. Now, in this video, I'm going to give you an overview of these antennas. We're going to take a look at them, we'll tear them apart and have a look what's inside, and then I'm going to show you the results of some of my testing and share my thoughts on if you should consider getting these or not. Now, just to be crystal clear up front, BDI did reach out and send me these antennas for free. However, they have not paid me to make this video. They've not seen this video before it's been published, and as always, my thoughts are entirely my own. Okay, so let's take a look at what we get in the box with these antennas first of all. Now, as you can see, it comes in this cardboard packaging. Inside, we have a little card with BDI and gives us all of the information, and there's a QR code there for the manual as well. We'll take a look at that a little bit later. There is an Allen key included as well. I think that's for adjusting the tension on the hinges, and then inside you can see the antennas themselves. Now, getting into these, lifting them out, you can see there we've got the one for that side, which will be the left hand side, and then there we've got the one for the right side. Now, these are patch antennas. They are directional. We will talk about the specification of them a little bit more later on, but they are going to offer a lot more gain than you're going to get from the standard Omni antennas. And the nice thing about these is they also make a nice replacement if you were to have lost one of your antennas for your goggles too. Now, when it comes to compatibility on these antennas, they are designed for the DJI Goggles 2 only. These are the only version of the modern goggles that still have a removable antenna. The Goggles 2 antennas can be pulled out. They have that antenna connection there and located in there. Unfortunately, the Integras and the Goggles 3 and the new Goggles N3 do not have removable antennas. They are fixed antennas. So as a result of that, these patches are only compatible with the Goggles 2. Now, as for fitting these antennas, it's fairly straightforward. You can see underneath it's got the same connection as we have on the original antenna, and there's some molded plastic around there. And it's simply a case of just popping it in, giving it a push, and then the antenna will lock in. We will do the same on this side over here. There we go. And then once pushed in place, the antennas are fitted on the goggles. Now, the real nice thing about these is they're designed to fold flat, so you can use them in this position as you see here, and they fold in really nicely against the front of the goggles. You could actually use them in this position without any problems at all. However, they do have a nice feature that they do fold up and move. They articulate. So again, I can rotate them up like that, rotate them like that, and then you've got the antennas either in that horizontal position out there, or you can place them in a vertical position like that there. Now, when it comes to the main specs and using these antennas, the first thing you need to understand is that they are actually left-hand circular polarized antennas. They're not linear like the originals that come on the Goggles 2. When using these with the likes of an O3E unit with the original DJI antenna like you see here, it'll be absolutely fine. This isn't linear polarized. It's partly left and partly right polarized, so it'll be fine. Using it with the Avata 2, yes, that is a linear setup antenna. However, I wouldn't worry too much about cross polarization. Yes, there's a theoretical loss as a result of doing that, but you still have far more gain with these antennas as a result of them being directive. Now, when using these, they are designed to be used in the vertical position. This will give you the main specs as you see it on the website. For instance, you have a horizontal beam width, or what I like to sometimes call a field of view, of 134 degrees, and a vertical beam width or field of view of 108 degrees when used in this position. You can use them in any orientation you like. So for instance, if you wanted to use them like that, you could. Obviously like this, you're swapping around the vertical and horizontal beam widths. You could use them vertically there, or you could even use them horizontally there. The best position for these is going to be the old rabbit ears approach. So that is pretty much like that there. That's going to give you the best of both between a vertical and a horizontal horizontal polarization. Now, when it comes to the gain and the frequency, these antennas are rated at between 8.25 and 9 dBi. That is right up there with the likes of the XR2s from TrueRC, and they should offer some decent performance improvement over the stock antennas that are around 1.5 to 2.5 dB of gain. With regards to frequency, these antennas are 5 to 6 gigs antennas only. They are not designed for 2.4 gigs. Whilst you're using these with the likes of the O3 unit, that'll be absolutely fine. There should be no need to make any changes. However, I will say that if you're going to use these with the Avata 2, I would recommend forcing the Avata 2 into manual channel selection mode on 5.8 gigs. Otherwise, it could jump down to the 2.4 gigs mode, although the auto mode should sort that out for you, but I would recommend using it on 5 gigs manually. Now, on last week's live stream, I actually tore one of these antennas down to have a look inside, so what we're going to do next is show you what we found. So, that is the inside of the antenna. Now, as you can see, the top here is glued on. It took a bit of prizing off, if I'm honest with you, but it did release. Now, we've got our center element there, which you can see is nice and gold, and you can then see the reflector part of the element underneath as well. If I just flip it up on the side, you can see there that there's solder points that go down in the 4 corners, and then you got your center element, you got your driven element on the top here with your 2 pieces either side for your circular polarization, and then you got your back element there. I don't know exactly what you would call this kind of antenna, but I have to say inside the design looks quite tidy, quite clean, no complaints at all. I'd have preferred clips than glue, but I do get why glue may have been used. And obviously then behind this area here, you have the ball joint, and then you have the adjustment for that. And as I did show earlier, one of the real nice features is the fact that that coax cable folds up inside the antenna, and you can then see that it goes in underneath that back element. Now, at this point in the video, I would usually move over to the testing and demonstrate what I've done, and then at the end share with you my thoughts. However, I'm going to do this one different. I'm going to talk about my results, and then I'm going to walk you through some of the things that I've done. But this is a bit of a complicated one, and I want to explain some stuff around this. There is no way I can tell you, I can quantify or prove without any doubt that these antennas will offer you a benefit over the likes of either the stock antennas or antennas by any other manufacturer. The stock antennas that come with the goggles too are linear antennas, omnidirectional. These are absolutely patch antennas. They are definitely directive. I have done tests around that, but what I cannot do is prove the benefit that these antennas will give you over others, because it is simply not possible. The way O3 works in itself complicates things because it is variable bitrate, and even moving your aircraft 1 or 2 inches can have a dramatic effect on the signal that you are receiving on the goggles. So you may try to do a flight and then do a second flight with these antennas compared to the originals, and unless you are literally identical, the results you get will not be correct. And the reason I'm saying this is I have spent the last 2 weeks trying, and the conclusion I've come to in the end is that it is basically impossible to prove one antenna on DJI is a benefit over another unless you do something like a very long range flight with one set of antennas and see where you get signal loss, and then do another long range flight with these antennas and see where you get signal loss. And even then, there are so many variables that come into play. I have done testing in flight, and I've tried to demo it in 2 different scenarios. I've done testing in a bench setup where I actually walk off with the goggles, and I've even done testing fixing both the goggles side and the air side and trying to see if there's a benefit. And there is no question that these antennas are not directive, and there is no question that a directive antenna will not offer improvement. But there are just too many variables here to tell you, yes, these antennas will benefit you, because it will be entirely dependent on what type of flying you're doing. The basic facts are a patch antenna will improve the signal reception in front of it. These antennas will do that. How much benefit you will get in your kind of flying is impossible to say. For instance, here I'm testing it in a fixed setup. The O3 ear unit is in my car and the goggles are at a fixed point, and what we're doing here is testing it with the stock antennas. I got it in a position where it was showing just 1 megabyte a second, and then in a moment I will switch over to the BDI patch antennas, and you will clearly see that there is an increase in bitrate. It increased from 1 megabit a second up to 3 megabit a second simply by swapping the antennas. Everything else was absolutely identical. There was no change. I then moved the goggles to a slightly closer position. This allowed me to increase the bitrate to around 6 megabits a second. You can see it here hovering between 5 and 6 megabits a second. And then we will swap over to the patch antenna again, the BDI. There you can see it's now increased to 9 megabits or 10 megabits a second. So there is zero doubt that these antennas do offer improvement over the stock antennas with regards to the signal straight out in front of you. It's just hard to say what benefit you will get in the real world, and we'll talk about that when I do some flights. Just to show you here, I then jumped straight back to the stock antenna again, and the signal dropped straight back down to between 4 and 6 megabits a second, so they are definitely having an effect. Now, the next bit of testing I was doing was to try and see the difference between the antennas out in the field. Here is an initial flight with the stock antennas on the goggles too, and I was lining the aircraft up into a specific position and trying to get the bit rate in a specific position, as you see, about 14 megabits a second. What I found in this though was in my tests, here is the second flight now with the patch antennas, and whilst it did look better there, you can see even very small changes in height will have an effect on the bitrate, and I was simply just not able to prove one way or another if the antennas were giving a benefit. You'll also note the barrow height looks very different. This is because I was even getting issues with the barometer saying what the correct altitude was. Even flying back, not landing and changing the antennas was causing the barrow height to change simply as a result of the cold temperatures. The best way to be able to actually test antennas isn't on a system like you see it here. It's actually outside of that on a VNA or a spectrum analyzer, and that would actually allow you to test it outside of all of the effects of the likes of DJI's bitrate shifting, latency and things like that. And what you'd be able to do is measure actual signal gain performance of the antennas compared to another antenna and not see the end result of that in DJI's bitrate number, because that will just move around. It will change if you put your hands behind the antennas, you put your hands next to them. If you move the goggles an inch on your head, the bitrate will move around. There is simply no easy factual way to prove through the DJI system that one antenna works above another. So as you've seen there, I can absolutely show these antennas give you a benefit in some situations, but I can't prove it for everything. One thing I do just want to stress though is that these are directional antennas. They are highly directive, and as a result of that, obviously, if you're going to be flying around the sides of yourself or behind yourself, these antennas are going to offer poorer performance compared to the originals. Remember, the original antennas are linear omnidirectional polarized, so they will work all the way around, whereas these are not. I'm not particularly worried about the cross polarization and stuff like that, although you may see some benefit if you wanted to upgrade your stock antenna on the air side too. If you're generally flying bandos and you're flying typically on the field around yourselves, I'm not really sure you're going to get a benefit from these. If you're someone though who is flying really long range and you want the maximum signal reception capability, then these should offer a benefit over the standard stock antenna. With regards to these compared to other antennas on the market, such as TrueRC and others, I can't tell you if these are better or worse than those antennas. TrueRC actually label their antennas slightly higher gain than these. So in theory, they will offer an improved signal reception. However, these are definitely more convenient than the other antennas, especially with the way they fold up. They have a really nice design to them. But what I'm not going to sit here and tell you is that you should rush out and buy these because they are absolutely better. And anyone who does tell you that is probably lying. The truth is, the same as it is for any patch antenna, a directional antenna will offer, in certain circumstances, signal reception and transmission improvements over an omnidirection, but it comes with upsides and it comes with downsides. And what I would say is, if you're not someone who's having problems, then there's probably no need to change your antennas. But if you want to maximize your signal reception capability and you want a convenient way of doing that, then these are definitely worth a look. So, in the end, my tests have shown these antennas definitely offer some benefit when doing bench testing, but I cannot quantify that in the real world. What they are, though, is a very nice design, and I really like the folding design and setup. It's much better than some of the other patches that I've seen out there, some of the other directional antennas. So if you are looking to upgrade the antenna for something that gives you some benefit, then this design should suit you well. It's much nicer to carry around. You don't have to remove the antennas, and BDI have done a great job on the overall design. Now, if you're interested in getting a set of these, they are available from the British Drone Industries website. They cost $56.99. They are in stock there. I don't know what the situation is going to be in other parts of the world. There will be a link, though, to their website in the description. I want to say a massive thank you to BDI for sending these over. I really do like the design. It's nice to see another option out there if you lose your original antenna or you do want to upgrade. And if you're interested in getting them, the link will be below. Now, before we wrap this one up, if you have any questions or comments, please do put them down below. And finally, I just want to say, if you like what you've seen here and you'd like to support the channel, please do consider checking out the links to my Patreon or buy me a coffee. It is only through the support of my patrons am I able to keep making content on this channel. And if you'd like to support us to allow us to keep making content in the future, please do consider checking it out. I want to say a huge thank you to all of my patrons. We would not be able to do this without your support. Anyway, that's it from me on this one. Stay safe. I will speak to you soon.